In our medium-sized town, I came up and parked outside the police station. I needed to contain the fury I was feeling since my thoughts was racing. I told myself over and over again to keep my composure. Watch what you said, not to cross the line, not to threaten, not to panic, make sure there were witnesses, and burn the bastard. I found myself saying this over and over again to myself. Don't cross the line. I approached the thick bulletproof window at the front of the station and inquired, as normal as I could, "Is Officer Jenkins here? I want to speak with him." "What's this about?" inquired the female cop outside the window. "I'm trying to save his life." That caught her interest. After a span of 2 minutes, this haughty fool appeared before me, grinning as though he was acknowledging my presence. "It's me, David Smith. I'm Officer Jenkins. I think you've already met my wife." His grin now developed into a smirk. I saw the word cuck was itching to escape his lips. "What can I do for you, Mr. Smith?" "I'm going to wipe that smug look off your face, you worthless bastard," I thought to myself. As if I were reading the news, I spoke in the calmest, most innocent voice I could muster. "I'm here to save your life. Although, to be honest, it's probably too late. It's almost too late for you." The news was not well received by him. "Are you threatening me?" As soon as his 3 police buddies heard him, he put his hand on his revolver and started walking toward us. "You goddamn coward," I said, a little louder so that his buddies could hear. "Not at all. Not at all. You have already taken your own life. All I want to do is watch out that you don't harm anyone else." His friends clustered around me, and the female cop with the glass shield was seeing everything. I allowed my voice to drop down to its typical, inoffensive level. "You know, I caught you leaving my house this morning. I walked inside and discovered that you had left some stains on the covers and that the bed I typically sleep on was completely destroyed. Although my wife told me your name, I know you as the man who had an affair with her. I therefore owe it to you to make sure you are aware of every repercussion of what you did. I'm going to put you away if you hit her, coward. I'm going to drag you outside and make you vanish." What an intriguing menace that is. I can only presume that your friends here are not involved in your legal escapade. But I didn't approach her with my hand, and I don't mean to threaten you. I'm merely carrying out my civic responsibility to prevent needless deaths. Aside from you, I guess, but at this point, there's nothing I can do. Now his other cops were huddled around me. "See, my wife is HIV positive, and I assume you slept with her without a condom." His friends retreated a step. Like I did this morning, I returned home early from a business trip about 1.5 years ago and saw her with the person she was working with. I got rid of her and got a divorce. After 1 year or so, her HIV test result was positive. Her parents rejected her, and the woman she was living with, just a work friend, threw her out of the flat. She begged me to take her in when she arrived at my door, her luggage in hand. Even though she was no longer my spouse at that point, I allowed her to stay in my guest room because it was difficult for me to end our years of marriage. She told me the truth for the first time in her life, and for that I will give her credit. She informed me of the test's positive outcome. Goes without saying that since the day I threw her out, I have never slept with her. I've been tested multiple times and come up negative each time, but I'm not sure when she contracted the virus. Can't be too cautious, can you? Officer Jenkins and I had plenty of space as his friends had already taken 2 more steps back. They were still paying close attention. Here's the problem, though. My ex hasn't made love to me in at least 6 months, as far as I know. She's a chronic liar and a little narcissistic. Drinking doesn't make her more sincere. I assume that you met her, possibly at another bar somewhere. Really, I don't care. She is, as I mentioned, my ex. All I'm trying to say is that you probably already have the virus. You could infect someone else in the interim, but it takes around 6 months for it to manifest in the tests. Are you married, please? The band on his finger proved to me that he was married. You really should use a condom until the test results are back if you have sex with your wife. Inform your spouse that you may be suffering from a UTI or another illness. You're probably really skilled at lying to her already. The venom in his eyes was visible to me. There were witnesses, yet he still wanted to kill me. It's fortunate that I chose to do it at the police station. Anyhow, who the hell would kill a messenger? I simply wanted to let you know that you should begin taking tests. My ex is unlikely to inform you. I turned, nodded, and headed for the door. Have a good day. I could not help but smile as I drove out of the station. My wife was not my ex-wife yet, and she did not have HIV. Of course she would be, but not just yet. When I informed Officer Jenkins that my wife didn't know the truth, I was being honest. Yet when I told him he had AIDS, I wasn't being entirely truthful. Okay, I'll admit to telling a small untruth. I stared in the rearview mirror for the first few miles, wondering if Officer Jenkins and his cronies would come after me. They had other things to do, I suppose. The thought of all the mayhem at the station was hilarious. I headed to my favorite diner to meet my friends 20 minutes later. This morning, I texted them. My pals are the kind that are always up for going out to dinner. We would have liked breakfast at the diner, but lunch would have to do in an emergency. Usually, we would just sit and chat, crack crude jokes, and hurl insults at each other. My buddies asked me what was bothering me in the middle of the meal, knowing me all too well. Telling them, I took a deep breath. Who can you talk about your troubles if not your friends? They proved me correct that day. I've always thought that having lunch with pals can be the best therapy a guy can receive. They stood behind me man to man, and I knew their women would too. I knew I wasn't alone, but the remainder of lunch went a little gloomy. They assured me that if dishonorable Officer Jenkins pursued me, they would defend me. To be honest, I felt a lot better as I drove home than when I left this morning. It was short-lived. There were several police cars parked outside and a lot of blue lights on my property when I arrived home. Fantastic, I believed. They were heading my way. An officer stopped me and appeared to know who I was. Mr. Smith, would you please park here and get out of your car? I have to tell you that people know where I am, and I had lunch with 5 witnesses. Planning anything. Sir, would you please step out of your car? After getting out, I waited beside my car. After a while, a chubby investigator in an inexpensive suit approached me. Mr. Smith, could you tell me where you were today? This morning, as most of you are aware, I visited the police station. I then proceeded to have lunch with some pals in the diner. Witnesses I have will attest to my presence. Although I would like to know their identities, you are not currently being investigated. Thus, are you going to keep me guessing, or can you explain what's happening? Just before noon, according to your neighbors, Officer Jenkins smashed his patrol car into your porch after driving across your front lawn. Then he came into your home. We thought there had been a fight of some kind. Because of your performance at the station this morning, we have a decent notion of what they were fighting over. 2 gunshots were heard by nearby residents. Officer Jenkins and your wife were discovered dead in the main room. He fired twice with his service revolver. The bastard was watching me to see how I would react when my wife passed away. My ass? I'm not a suspect. To the best of his ability, he was spinning this to absolve the cops of any responsibility. It is impossible to spend half of your adult life with a woman and remain emotionless when they inform you that she has just been murdered. I was overcome with grief and anger for the second time today. I didn't want her to pass away, even though I planned to divorce. Is she really not your ex-wife? Is it true that you are not legally divorced? No. And the whole thing was just a performance at the station this morning designed to get back at Jenkins, wasn't it? I gave him a direct look and remained silent. Well, I believe you exacted revenge on them both. Best wishes. I'd lock you up if it were up to me. However, legally speaking, what you did is not illegal. You simply have to learn to live with it. I'll be all right. I'm not a killer. I am not the same as your Officer Jenkins, who senselessly shot a woman. The police officers surrounding us had expressions on their faces that even a skilled investigator could decipher. I was happy to have witnesses for the second time today. I saw 2 gurneys with corpse bags on them being removed from the house by the EMS. After realizing that there was nothing more I could do there, I returned to my car and drove to my lawyer's office. I mean, I didn't really need this divorce anymore. But I should be ready if someone turns out to think that lying is a more serious offense than murder. How do you interpret this? Tell me in the comment section below, please. Thank you for coming today. In order to make sure your next chef stays faithful, subscribe to our channel. The next story is nothing compared to what's coming, so stay tuned. But I strongly warn avoiding listening to the next story if you're younger than 18.